I am thrilled at this face-to-face dialogue with you as members of the world's largest youth-driven organization, conducting, among others, a global internship program among some 124 countries and including some 2,400 universities. As host country for this year's Asia-Pacific Congress, we in the Philippines are honored to welcome each one of you who is a foreign delegate to our country to wish you a productive and enlightening conference. And to the rest of you who come from all the major cities and towns of our archipelago, welcome to Metro Manila, the seat of government, the seat of glamour, bling, and unfortunately also the seat of the most atrocious corruption I've ever seen. Recently, the Supreme Court released the results of the latest bar examinations. I heard that one of the questions in the last bar exams went like this: should Santa Claus be considered a criminal? Should Santa Claus be considered a criminal? Guess. The answer is yes. Santa Claus is liable for crimes such as illegal surveillance, unfair labor practices, animal abuse, and breaking and entering. And while talking of the bar exams, let me ask you, do you know what is the result of the IQ exams of corrupt politicians? Answer, negative. One of these corrupt politicians went for a job interview and the recruitment manager said, "We're looking for someone who is responsible." "Well, I'm your man for the job," replied the politician. "In my last job, whenever anything went wrong with a PDAF given to non-existent NGOs or given to the Department of Agriculture, they always said I was responsible." Here's a pickup line for aspiring leaders. Can I follow you home? Because my parents always told me to follow my dreams. What makes a world-class youth leader? If you lead an organization that is international in scope, does that make you a world-class leader by default? Does the number of Twitter followers and Facebook friends determine who a world-class leader is? Here are some indications of this leadership. When friends and family seek and value your opinion on who to vote for or your stand on issues that affect everyone. When you speak your purest intentions in the purest of voices. When the ripples you make, no matter how small, in your community, contribute to the bigger pond outside your borders. World-class leaders have skills and knowledge which set them apart from others, even those who are considered as good leaders. This level of achievement is the result of hard work, experience, and learning. You are not born a leader. You have to make yourself one. And this can only be the result of, to repeat, hard work, experience, and learning. Kaya ganyan ang progreso natin dahil yung mga kasapi doon, hindi nila alam ang hard work, experience, and learning. Any person who is educable, that's a problem. Many members of Congress are non-educable. Any person who is educable and willing to study and model the best can develop these world-class leadership skills. Number one, good communication skills. Communication is an important strategy necessary for world-class leadership. Really effective leaders set mutual expectations clearly. They make sure everyone has very clear objectives and performance measures and check that they understand them. They are good at planning and at communicating the step between where the team is at present and where it needs to be. They give continuous feedback. They give people goals to achieve, but ensure they have all the support they need from their leader and their colleagues. They make sure that achievements are recognized, and they encourage and establish team members' sense of belief. Number 2, developing relationships. World-class leaders know the value of creating relationships with employees, customers, suppliers, vendors, and even competitors, so that their organization will be more responsive and proactive in meeting the organization's goals and objectives. Strong, effective relationships are based on trust and respect and help build a positive synergy throughout the organization. Number 3, visionary. The world-class leader is a visionary. Vision is the imaginary place where an organization can go, and it indicates a gap between what is and what can be. Visionary leaders use their leadership insights to develop a vision and convince others to support and help reach the goals of the organization. Number 4, adaptive. ADA, adaptive or situational leadership. Situational leadership. Pero palaging natanong ng publiko ngayon, sinong dapat ihalal natin sa 2016? Ano klaseng leader ang kailangan? There is no correct answer to that question. The best answer we can give is that we should have a president. He or she will eventually turn out to be possibly the best president of our country if he knows how to adjust his leadership to the situation where we find ourselves. Halimbawa, nakita na natin, lahat pala itong mga senador at mga congressman, puro gago ito, nakaw ng pera ng gobyerno. Pagkatapos, pag sinubong sila, galit pa sila. Kaya dapat sa situational leadership na yan, dapat ang presidente, puntahan niyo sila isa-isa, lalo na itong mga senador, at amunin na lang yan ang tuntukan. Hindi ba kuha sa pag-iusap eh? On the one hand, if the team is composed of experts in the situation, there's plenty of time for a collaborative approach. An adaptive leader will allow the team to formulate and implement plans collaboratively with a minimum of direction. On the other hand, if the same team has a pressing deadline, the leader may have to guide and direct the team more firmly to meet the deadline. Number 5, skill mastery and transfer. World-class leaders have mastered a large skill set to achieve a high level of performance. Where they haven't, they know enough to acquire those skills from others or through education, training, and professional development. Further, they have the confidence and skill to coach and mentor their team members, colleagues, and peers. Number 6, teamwork, morale, and cohesion. Excellent leaders have mastered teamwork. Teamwork is focused on producing results in an effective and efficient manner with available resources and getting the most out of the various backgrounds of the members. World-class leaders understand the importance of maintaining morale and cohesion within their organizations. Morale is the steely determination to keep going despite hardships, obstacles, and failures. When morale is high, the organization or individual will keep focusing on a positive outcome despite discouragement. Cohesion is the degree to which individuals subordinate their own interests to those of the group. The talents of the digital age. The digital age has made it easier to motivate and engage people, communities, and even nations. The internet has opened up new horizons for communication and knowledge. Leaders must be aware of the new opportunities and constraints of information and communications technology and use them effectively. Power in the digital age is all about influence. Social media is about having the courage to use your voice to start a conversation, influence people, and bring about social change. Each person has the potential to make a difference and leave a legacy. Building a legacy is not just about people remembering who you were. Here's how great leaders build a legacy. 1. Know what matters. You cannot leave behind a legacy by accident. And if you do, the legacy will likely be negative. You should know clearly and unambiguously what you want your legacy to be. 2. Start. Make the choice to start making a difference. The impact and difference you make on a daily basis will add up to the legacy you leave behind. 3. Run your own race. Be yourself and don't try to be like anyone else. Find and then focus on your personal vision and life purpose, then strive to daily move toward your purpose and potential. 4. Find strength. Find and maximize your strength and overcome your limitations and fears. 5. Deserve and add value. Starting, running your own race, and finding your strength. All should be to serve and add value to others. To serve and add value to others. Sa ngayon, hindi naman tumatakbo ang mga kandidato para makapagsilbi sila sa publiko, kung hindi para makapagnakaw sila. Kasi, muna, kailangan marami kang pera para manalo ka, o rin mangungutang ka kung may utang na loob ka. Pagkatapos pag nasa pwesto ka na, di nakaw ka ng nakaw para mabayaran mo yung mga pinag-inutang mo at mabili mo ngayon ang mga botante sa susunod na halalan. It's a vicious cycle of corruption, corruption, corruption. Kaya dapat there should be an end to this cycle. And that end can only start with you. Kung ayaw nyo, hindi palagi na lang corrupt ang sistema natin. Kailangan kayo ang maging leader. Kasi wala nang pag-asa yung mga matatanda na ito, yung mga sexes, mga poke. The Crimea event. Since you are potential leaders and since I'm a student of international law, let us take this opportunity to discuss briefly what I will call the Crimea event. Crimea used to be part of the Ukraine, a country which is geographically adjacent to Russia, and where the local population speaks not Ukraine, but Russian. In a recent referendum, where 83% of the Crimeans turned out, 97% of the Crimeans reportedly voted to leave Ukraine and to join Russia. The government of Ukraine protests the referendum as violative of international law. May Russia, merong Ukraine, merong Crimea dito malapit sa Russia. In fact, ang Crimea, ang salita nila, hindi Ukraine language, kung hindi Russian. O ngayon, nag-referendum daw sila. At marami daw, 97% gusto na maging independent muna sila tapos kasama na sila ngayon sa Russian Federation. Russia, like the United States, is a federal form of government. So the question now is, should we recognize Crimea or not? Abel, itesting ko nga kayo bilang leaders. Who are those who are in favor of recognition, and who are those who are not in favor of recognition? Abel, yes to recognition, raise your right hands. Wala. No to recognition, raise your right hands. Wala rin. Sitting on the fence, ang tawag yan. Kamukha yung ibang mga senador. Nag-ambisyon sila tumakbong presidente o vice president sa 2016. Pero sa ngayon, tanongin mo, yes or no ba kayo sa pork barrel scandal? Wala silang kibo. Lahat na lang ng tao, nagsalita na. Yung mga whistleblowers, itong mga tutukoy nilang mga senador. Hala, daldal sila ng daldal. Hindi naman abogado yung iwan. Ang dami nilang batas na lang. Well, in any event, I will not blame you because it's a actually very complicated question. What has happened is what in international law called secession. There's a part of the state that it wants to secede, to separate. But in international law, there is no authoritative definition of secession. In the past, secession was defined as the unilateral withdrawal from a state of a constituent part with its territory and population. But today, the definition of secession implies that secession results in separation, regardless of whether or not the separation happens with the consent of the existing state. Yun ang problema. If there is a small part of the country that wants to separate, wala tayong problema if the main country if the main country consents. Magkasundo sila. Gusto namin maghiwalay. Sabi niya, okay. O di wala tayong problema. It just becomes a question of internal determination. But, if the main government does not consent that this one should separate, ano man ang mangyayari? That is the question of international law. Kung hindi mo payagan ito, para namang ina-appeal mo itong mga mas konti ang numero nila, ang bilang nila. Kung payagan mo, eh mamaya nag-separate yan, nag-separate naman ito. So that is the question of international law. That is why there is no authoritative definition of secession in international law, because we do not want to specify whether secession demands the consent of the mother state. Most often in media, the Crimea event is discussed in the light of the previous Kosovo event. Naalala niyo ang Kosovo? Don't bother if you don't remember it. Many people don't remember it, especially the members of the Senate, because they are suffering from dementia. Matatanda na kasi eh. Kosovo separated despite the opposition of the state of Serbia. Thereafter, many states in the world promoted the separation because they claimed that Serbia had resorted to ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. This is Serbia and this is Kosovo, both part. Then it wanted to separate because there are Muslims here. Here, in the rest of Serbia, they are Christians. Inaapi daw sila nito mga Kristiyano, kaya gusto nila, hiniwalay na lang sila. Ngayon, ang problema lang dyan ay, it was highly documented that people in Kosovo were being killed or tortured or otherwise driven out of Serbia, the mother state. That is what was called ethnic cleansing. Ako gusto ko rin mag-cleansing sa Senado eh. Kung pwede nga lang ba. Dahil non-educable nga sila. Naging professor ako sa UP for 10 years. But I've never seen such a group that is so resistant to education as the Philippine Senate. The UN Security Council did not authorize military action against Kosovo. Even so, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its member states intervened in Kosovo. Ito na naman sila. Ito mga Europeans, mga Amerikano, ang hilig-hilig na makialam because they want to assume the role of policeman of the world. Maniwala ka. Serbia surrendered, and the Security Council authorized an international civil and military presence in Kosovo. The Security Council ignored the legality of the previous use of force, as well as the final status of Kosovo. At present, the status of Kosovo remains controversial, because while some states have extended recognition, others have refused to recognize it. The Philippines has not extended recognition to Kosovo. If you think more deeply about the matter, you will know why the Philippines has not extended recognition. But I won't tell you. The Kosovo event served to show that, in the words of the writers Daniel Führer and Thomas Bury, quote, a non-principled pragmatic approach is preferred in the domain of secession. Huwag ka nang usap patungkol sa prinsipyo dahil magkakagulo kayo that involves ideology. Kaya dapat mong gagawin yan is, titingnan mo sa ginagamit mong mata that does not include the question of ideology or principle. The approach means that it is not non-compliance with legal standards that is decisive for the success or failure of an attempt at secession, but rather non-legal factors such as diplomatic abilities or the ability to raise international support or influence the media. Quite plainly, military power is often crucial. In brief, international law is neutral with respect to secession. International law neither prohibits nor promotes secession. The major consideration is mainly political, and this decides the issue of whether a state will recognize the new independent state. Kaya pagtatanong para sa Pilipinas ay, should we extend recognition to the new state of Crimea? The main service of the Kosovo event is that it motivates other oppressed populations to claim statehood. I told you already, the problem does not present a solution because kung ang bansa ay iba-ibang ethnic minority siya, no? At ito sila mas marami. Ito sila mas konti. Pero ibang religion nila, di mamaya, dahil naapi sila sa paningin nila, alis na lang sila. They will claim the right of self-determination. But if you apply that principle, mamaya ito naman gusto niya, alis din siya. Gusto niya, alis din siya. In the Philippines, for example, that is already an archipelago, a small country further divided by the ocean. Hindi mo naman mapayagan yung principle of self-determination dahil wala nang archipelago pag ganyan. So this is for lawyers like me interested in international law, a conundrum. Right now it's like a puzzle. As you can see, like Kosovo, the Crimea event is not a simple case of finding a legal provision in a law book and applying it to the case at hand. Anong diferensya ng national law at ng international law? Abel? Anong kaibahan nila? National law is passed by Congress. Isn't that so? But there is no international Congress, and there is therefore no international Congress or Parliament to pass international law. Kaibang international law dahil hindi mo pinapasa muna sa Kongreso. Walang Kongreso ganun eh. So how do you find international law? Abel? You stayed up late last night, I can see. The Crimea event shows all of us that the structure of the international order is always undergoing change. For international law is not found in laws passed by an international parliament. International law develops from the practice of states, supranational organizations, international courts, civil society, minorities, and transnational corporations. Kunin mo international law sa ginawa na sa matagal na panahon nito mga entities na ka-enumerate ko. Pag-aralan mo anong ginawa nila, kung sapat na ang panahon ang nakalipas, di ba mayroon ng rule of international law. So it's very difficult because when you solve an international law problem, your first problem is what is international law on this topic? You don't even know what it is. Whereas with respect to civil cases or criminal cases, alam mo kagad. Kumuha ka lang ng civil code, kumuha ka lang ng penal code. Pero sa international, walang ganung code. In some final analysis in the future, the independence of Crimea will depend upon the acceptance of the international community. It remains to be seen whether the Crimea event will in time give rise to the right to secede from a state. Today, Crimeans base their claim on the right to self-determination, more particularly on the principle of self-determination. But if so, we have to wait for international practice to develop. Meanwhile, the Crimea event does not yet constitute customary international law. I think I'll teach you a lesson for free. Can you be paid by the hour for this? But, just to be of some service to you, there are two sources of international law. One is called international conventional law. Convention is a treaty. So, if you have a treaty among states, we are bound by the treaty. It's very simple. The second source of international law is called customary international law. Yung nakasanayan na ng mga bansa sa daigdig. Pero, you know, you have a question of how many states? How many states are there? How many states are there in the world, class? Huh? Ano?
200 plus.
It's about 200, no? So, what should we take as our denominator? Should we take the rule of the majority, that means to say 100 plus 1 of the total number of states? Or shall we take the majority of only the states who are connected to that particular practice? For example, when we talk of maritime international law, dyan ang Pilipinas ang una. Dahil we are a maritime country, the sea is a big part of the life of every Filipino. Kaya, if we determine international law concerning the use of the ocean, should we consider the opinions of landlocked states na walang pakialam? that we see already provides an example of how complex international law is. Ngayon, let me just give you a formula to determine whether international custom has arisen. International customary law consists of three factors. One is there is a practice among states. The second is that practice has been repeated over a sufficient period of time. And the third and most important and most complex factor is that there is opinion juris. Repeat it to yourself. Opinion juris. The principle is known in Latin as opinion juris sive necessitatis. This is a principle that for a conduct or a practice to become a rule of customary international law, it must be shown that nations believe that international law, believe sila, rather than moral obligation, mandates the conduct or practice. This is just to prove to you how brilliant your guest speaker is. Because these factors are so difficult to understand, I've tried very hard to make it simpler for you. I'm also trying to attract you to the profession of international lawyer because there are more and more international lawyers in the world today. It is like the hot profession because of globalization. So if you're the sort who does not want to be bound by strict rules like you can find in the civil code or in the penal code, if you're the sort who is very analytic, international law might be a field for you. So I have just shown you how complex life can be. I've also enumerated to you what you should try to aspire for so that one day you can be known, not as a youth leader, but as a national leader, the leader of your country. Sa ngayon, wala tayong leader eh. Kanya-kanya tayong leader. Kaya, magtiis na lang tayo. But, as I've tried very hard to show in my life, since leaders are not born but are made, you, in conclusion, can make yourself a leader. You just step out with determination. First of all, I know that each one of you wants to be a successful professional. Isn't that so? That's why you go to school. Then you take up these different professions like law, medicine, architecture, engineering, etc. You want to be a successful professional. You want to buy your own house. Valid ambition. You want to buy your first car because generally you have more than one car in Metro Manila. That's also valid ambition. Then you meet someone. You want to marry your first spouse. But assuming for the sake of argument that this conference is productive and helps to achieve success for you in all these aspects, which are all material in nature, when you reach my age, you will sit down and ask yourself, what am I doing this for? In other words, you will be faced with what all people call the meaning of life. For you now, the meaning of life is a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But it goes beyond that as you grow older. What is the meaning of life? If you can answer this question, I'll turn over to you all my properties in my statement of assets that I The meaning of life is the meaning that you put into it. There is no answer to that question. What is the meaning of life? Nobody knows. It depends upon you. Life has the meaning that you want to put on it. That is how messy life is. If, for example, love is the meaning of your life, then you should concentrate on raising a loving family, loving your neighbor as yourself, and then you will find fulfillment and self-realization. But the meaning of life, in more easily understandable terms, is, as God said, as Jesus said, first, love God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul. God is not an old man in the sky wearing long robes and prohibiting you from doing things. That is a very old-fashioned and very superstitious notion of what God is. We don't know what God is. God is simply beyond human knowledge. It's beyond our reach. But certainly, There is a force in human life that directs the courses of the action that we take. This notion we think of as God. So have your own concept of God and not think of God as male. God is neither male nor female. God is the infinite force of the universe. We don't really know how the universe was created, but today, apparently, they believe that 14 billion years ago, there was a particle that was not even visible to the naked eye, and this particle became so condensed, so thick with gravity, that eventually there was a big bang. And in a split second, in a process called inflation, this little particle that would not even be seen by the naked eye suddenly gave rise to the universe. That is the Big Bang theory of physics, as you know. But no matter what our theories are, there are certain elementary truths that you can begin with. Number one, whether life is predestined or whether life is random, life is not within your control. So just learn to manage life. Do not aspire to control it. Only God can control events in our lives. That is how messy life is. I wish I could come here in front of you and say, oh, it was very easy. I just had it all the time and became very successful. But that is not so. I have had my share of failures and sadnesses and peace. So we don't really know what life is or what the meaning of life is. Put that meaning in your life by yourself, because my service to you does not extend up to those very intricate matters. However, in conclusion, we can take heart from a poem written by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It's familiar to you. Its title is A Song of Life. And the poem said, life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art to dust returneth, was not spoken of the soul. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime and depart to leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. Good luck in leaving your own footprints. Thank you.